Sisters and brothers, it's time to start the Justice for Homecare Tribunal. Please put your hands together and give a warm welcome to Sean Coatney. Hermanos y hermanas, ya es tiempo para empezar la justicia de Tribunal para cuidado en casa de los proveedores. Por favor, den un aplauso y una bienvenido a Sean Coatney.
Woo! How's everybody doing? You pour yourself a cup of ambition, you'll never take away. Of your facing jurisdiction, so they're working 9 to 5, working 9 to 5. There's no taking and no giving, there's no getting by. What a way to make a living, maybe lose your mind. It's enough to drive you crazy if you let it. Working 9 to 5, you've got the bad promotion. Live your life, they got to where they want you. Better move ahead. Don't you heard them say this loss is out to get me. 9 to 5, yeah. You know, all care providers, all they are is just everyday people, just like you and me. Better, and neither are you. We are the same, whatever we do. You hate me, you love me, and then you can't worry about the shape I'm in. Oh, sha sha. There is a long hair that won't accept the short hair, one that won't accept the rich one. Different strokes for different folks, and so on and so on, and Scooby-Dooby-Dooby. We gotta live together. Ooh, sha-sha. We gotta live together. Ooh, sha-sha. The everyday people, every day, every day, every day. It's everyday people. So, Mr. Brown, tell us what's going on. Mother, there's too many of you crying. brother, there's too many of you dying. You know we've gotta find a way to bring some love in here today. Father, Father, everybody thinks we're wrong. Who are they to judge us? Just because you got home care providers. Oh yeah, we gotta find a way. Bring some understanding here today. Picket lines, picket signs, punish me with brutality. Oh, no cutbacks, don't you see? We gotta understand what's going on. What's going on? Governor Brown, what's going on? Oh. Lines and picket signs. Oh, don't punish me with brutality. Talk to me so you can see what's going on. What's going on? What's going on? Yeah!
All right, what a performance by Sean Coatney. Everyone, please welcome Rabbi Mona Alfi, spiritual leader of Sacramento's largest Jewish congregation. Todos den una bienvenida a Rabino Mona Alfi, líder espiritual de una congregación judeo más grande en Sacramento.
I'm going to have to get some of those for my synagogue because that is the way everybody should enter onto a stage. Good afternoon. The Bible is a radical text. It challenges us to create a more just and compassionate society. And it commands us to hold the needs and interests of our fellow human beings as equal to our own. In the first, can I hear that again? In the first 2 chapters of the book of Genesis, we are given 2 imperatives about equality and workers' rights. In Genesis 1:27, it is written, God created humanity in the divine image. In the image of God, humanity was created male and female. Every person, male and female, is a reflection of the Eternal One. Every person contains within them a spark of holiness implanted within them by our Creator. This teaches us that in order to honor our Creator, we must also show honor to our fellow human beings. When we diminish another person through our words, through our actions, or even through our laws, we dishonor the one in whose image we were created. We are also taught that after God completed the sacred work of creating the world, God rested, blessing that day of rest and declaring it holy, and an imperative for all humanity throughout time to take the time to rest as well. If the Almighty One needed a day off, how much more do we? And it teaches us as well that God was the first to advocate for workers' rights. We turn our hearts to the creator of all humanity, the creator of time and space, of work and rest, of justice and of righteousness, the one in whose image we were created. And we ask for your blessing. We pray that you give us the strength to speak up for the rights of others and for ourselves. Help us as we work for justice for all who labor on behalf of others. May the work that we do be granted proper respect in the eyes of the law, so that we may continue to engage in the sacred work that we have been entrusted. In the name of all that is holy, let us say, Amen.
Amen. Sisters and brothers, please welcome our hosts for today's event, Brother Doug Moore and Sister Juana Flores. Hermanos y hermanas, por favor, den una bienvenida a nuestros presentadores para el evento. Nuestro hermano Doug Moore y hermana Juana Flores.
Good afternoon. I said good afternoon. That's much better, much better, much better. My name is Doug Moore, and I'm the Executive Director of UDW. Please join me in welcoming Juana Flores, the Co-Director of Mujeres Unidas.
Hola, Doug. Buenas tardes. Y también quiero dar una bienvenida a todos ustedes. Gracias por estar aquí. Pero, Doug, tengo una pregunta para ti. ¿Qué es un tribunal?
You know, that's a good question. A tribunal is a trial, and today we are putting the state of California on trial for the unjust treatment of home care workers and clients. How does that sound? How does that sound? All right. Today is about justice. We are here together because the workers who take care of some of the most important people in our lives, our grandmothers, our fathers, our children, our brothers, and sisters with disabilities, are not being treated fairly today. That's why we're here.
Las trabajadoras del hogar no están siendo tratadas justamente y nuestros vecinos y amistades que son mayores de edad no tienen, tampoco ellos están siendo tratados justamente. Así que estamos poniendo hoy a California en un juicio.
All right. Now our union UDW, along with the California Domestic Workers Coalition, are here to say no more. 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 And we have brought home care workers and clients from across the state to share their stories. A jury of civil and human rights leaders will decide whether or not justice is being denied to the home care community. Are you ready to get started?
¿Estamos listos para comenzar?
Great. We have one more announcement. During today's event, you can join the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag #JusticeForHomeCare. The word justice, the number 4, Homecare. That goes for the thousands of you watching at home also.
Qué lindo escuchar todo esto. Tenemos miles de personas viéndonos ahorita en este momento.
Okay, it's time to welcome our jury. Please join me in welcoming Lillian Galito. Lillian is the Executive Director of Filipino Advocates for Justice. Filipino Advocates for Justice, an organization that serves the needs of the Filipino community in the Bay Area. And is active in the larger movement of social justice. Since 2006, Filipino Advocates for Justice has sought to improve conditions and labor protections for caregivers in California and the U.S. Next, I would like to welcome my friend, Dr. Paul Song. As executive chairman of the 900,000 member Courage campaign, Dr. Song fights for a more progressive California. Dr. Song is a practicing radiation oncologist and a tireless advocate for universal health care. Our next juror is someone who is very familiar with home care. Evan LeVang is the Executive Director of the Disability Action Center. A nonprofit organization dedicated to helping community members with disabilities achieve self-reliance and independence. For over 20 years, LeVang has worked in disability services and advocacy. He currently serves as chair of the Shasta County Advisory Council on In-Home Support Services, or IHSS. Next, we are honored to have with us today a women's rights activist and up-and-coming leader, Sandra Fluke. Sandra came to national attention in 2012 when amidst personal attacks, she testified on Capitol Hill about the importance of insurance coverage for contraception. Today, Sandra Fluke is a social justice attorney who advocates for low-wage workers and victims of human trafficking. Sandra Fluke. Our next juror is a dear old friend and prominent voice in the labor movement. Tafari Gabre is the Executive Vice President of the AFL-CIO. The AFL-CIO is made up of over 12.5 million American workers and leads a worldwide movement for social and economic justice. Gabre, born in Ethiopia, was a political refugee who immigrated to the United States as a teenager. He worked his first union job at UPS and since then has devoted his life work to the labor movement. And last, but certainly not least, we would like to welcome our head juror, Katie Joaquin. Katie is the campaign director for the California Domestic Workers Coalition. She has been organizing immigrant women workers for the past decade, including a recent multi-year campaign win with the historic passage of the California Domestic Workers Bill of Rights. Currently, Katie is coordinating the drive to organize 10% of all California private paid domestic workers. Welcome all of our jurors and welcome to all of you.
Bienvenidos a todos. Ahora están listos para comenzar el Tribunal de Justicia para la Ciudad en el Hogar y el Cuidado en el Hogar. Muchísimas gracias.
Okay, it's time to get down to business. Next, we would like to introduce our first witnesses, Nikki Brown Booker and Dr. Ellen Boris, who will be testifying about the importance of home care.
I can't stop now. Move up a little higher, some way or somehow. 'Cause I've got my strength, and it don't make sense not to keep on pushing.
Good afternoon. Buenos dias. My name is Eileen Boris, and I'm the Hull Professor of Feminist Studies and a Professor of History, Black Studies, and Global Studies at the University of California, Santa Barbara. With Jennifer Klein of Yale, I've written the prize-winning history, Caring for America, Home Health Workers in the Shadow of the Welfare State. I come to you with pleasure, and it's a real pleasure, but also a privilege to have this opportunity to address the esteemed jurors, but also to talk with you, the people who make the work of the world possible. Thank you. I come to you to explain how law and social policy, both in Washington and in Sacramento, have turned care work into a low-wage job, naturalized not only as women's work, but as bad work, appropriate for poor women, particularly African American and immigrant women. But workers and consumers of home care, along with their allies, always have fought back. History helps us to understand that stigma, disrespect, low wages, and stolen time are not inherent to domestic and care work, but rather such qualities are legacies of slavery, Jim Crow, and limited notions of women's proper place, in which some more privileged people have benefited from the need for care that is, after all, the human condition. The exclusion of domestic and household work from the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938, that is the FLSA, occurred in the wake of the New Deal relief programs that sent unemployed domestic workers, mostly African Americans, out as visiting housekeepers to care for children and then for elderly people and people with disabilities who were pushed out of institutions to save money, not for other reasons at that time. The home location of such labor justified exclusion of cleaners and caregivers from workplace rights. A man's home was considered his castle, and such reasoning separated the public from the private, even when the home became a workplace. The New Deal stopped in front of the family's door, placing household employees and agricultural laborers, jobs overrepresented by African Americans and immigrants of color, outside the law. Following World War II, both public welfare and health departments and nonprofit social and child welfare agencies, often religiously based, established home care services to maintain in the community those adults who required assistance rather than warehousing them in more expensive institutions and hospitals. These jobs were to be good staff positions with training and career ladders, benefits, and social and civil service-like guarantees. But in the 1960s, with the greater prestige and more fulsome funding of medical models of care, we begin to have a job that becomes more casualized. And poor women who were on public assistance are pushed into these jobs, supposedly to make them independent, but really they became dependent on a low-wage labor market. Meanwhile, organized labor was demanding expanded wage and hour coverage. In 1966, care workers gained recognition under the Fair Labor Standards Act if they labored in an institutional setting, like a hospital. At the same time, those employed by what were called enterprises, that is businesses that earned a certain amount a year, at that time was $500,000, were subject to the law. And actually in the early 1970s, the Department of Labor won settlements against home care agencies, precisely the kind of third-party employers today contesting overtime provisions. In 1968, a divided California Industrial Welfare Commission that had been established in 1913 to extend labor standards to women workers first sought to include domestics. But business members protested this move as neither practical nor desirable and questioned whether inspectors could enter private homes to determine compliance. About the same time in 1972, IHSS developed, at the time as a welfare and health providing program in which the focus was on the recipient or the consumer rather than the provider of care. It came out of a contest led by the independent living movement, the disability rights movement of that day, and their contest against Ronald Reagan to implement federal disability programs. But at the same time, domestic workers under the banner of the Household Technicians of America were on the march, demanding recognition and decent treatment as part of a larger civil rights struggle. In 1974, most domestic workers won minimum wage and overtime coverage under FLSA, but not live-in workers. There is no doubt that the intent of Congress was to continue its expansion of the FLSA. That is what happened next. The exclusion of previously covered home care employees of agencies remains so puzzling. It is clear that the formulators of the 1974 amendments were not thinking of a huge for-profit industry when they excluded elder companions from the labor law. They were not speaking, as one put it, about the professional domestic who does this as a daily living, but rather about a neighbor who comes in and sits with an infirm or aged person. As the Maine senator who was shepherding the bill through Congress put it, companion, as we mean it, is to be there and to watch an older person, not perform housework. That is, the companion was to be an elder sitter akin to a babysitter. The babysitter, though, was the teenage girl next door, not a family breadwinner who needed higher wages to support others. So, too, the elder sitter was to be a part-time worker. But some childminders were workers, and so the managers of the bill added casual to clarify the distinction between the teenage babysitter and the family breadwinner. In making the rules to implement the 1974 amendments, the U.S. Department of Labor decided in its final deliberation to extend the companionship exemption to all domestic workers, whether hired by individuals or enterprises. California, 2 years later, in 1976, when it created its Wage Order 15 for employees in household occupations, provided a floor on wages and many other regulations, but like the amended FLSA, it encompasses only domestics at the time who primarily did housework, but classified personal attendants and others who cared for people as ineligible for its protections. IHSS existed as a separate part of the state code, though some provisions like minimum wage applied. By the early 1980s, home care unionizing had taken off. The founders of UDWA hoped for a membership that would include private household workers, hotel maids, and nursing home workers, but discovered their calling in organizing the home attendants paid by county welfare departments, which, as in San Diego, its home, and elsewhere, were contracting out this workforce to private homemaker corporations. UDWA built a multiracial union of African Americans, Mexican Americans, immigrant women of color, white women, along with some men. The various home care unions began organizing drives that showed women as the new face of labor, as hundreds of thousands of homemaids and attendants became unionized, both those who worked for agencies and those who worked for individuals, not only with UDW, but SEIU, and in some places, CWA. There was great creative innovation to figure out how to cover workers jointly employed by individuals and governments. Some of these innovations are being readjusted today in light of a hostile Supreme Court. As unions have fought back the conservative fiscal tide since the Great Recession of 2008 and have played defensive against well-oiled anti-union forces, a new domestic workers movement has been developing of immigrant women of color joined to an older tradition of African-American organizing. California's Bill of Rights, passed in 2013, thanks to that movement. And Governor Brown signed the act. He signed the act right after the Obama administration, only like a week or so later, announced final rules revising the so-called companionship exemption for personal care workers that had become so out of date in today's home care industry, one of the fastest growing in the nation. And indeed, if I had more time, I would argue that it was the companionship exemption along with some Reagan administration changes in the early 80s that fueled that $87 billion industry. The Bill of Rights promises to bring even more household workers under overtime protection. However, excluded in the final bill were IHSS workers. The thought was that they would be covered by the new federal regulation of care work under FLSA. As 2015 approached, we thought that the 40 years in the wilderness had ended. California had enacted last June a bill that committed the state to implementing overtime for IHSS workers, even if the federal change was delayed. Then D.C. District Judge Richard A. Leon, a George W. Bush appointee, struck down the revised rule. He ignored precedent and the Supreme Court's own reasoning, which upheld the rule-making power of the DOL on this very issue. But in response, California's Department of Social Services halted payment of IHSS overtime, even though there is nothing to keep a state from being more generous, and even though Leon's decision is unlikely to be upheld. But this turn of events reminds us that there will be no justice without stronger worker movements demanding accountability of elected officials and enforcement for empowerment. Let me conclude. 2 decades ago, under the slogan, "We care for the most important people in your life," New York consumers unions and employer associations together won increased state payment for home care. They understood what disability rights groups, senior advocates, and organized labor in California and elsewhere have learned. Better wages and better care go hand in hand. In spite of public policies that separate, that place enforcement and regulation under different laws and in different administrative bodies, the alliance we witness today in this very tribunal between UDWA and the California Domestic Workers Coalition represents the recognition of the shared interests of domestic workers and home care workers, those who give and those who receive, workers, employers, and consumers, even our governor and politicians, in building together a more caring and a more just America.
Hi, my name is Nikki Brown Booker, and I am a member of Hand in Hand, the National Domestic Employers Network. We are a collection of employers who employ nannies, house cleaners, and personal attendants in our homes. We are rooted in the conviction that employers and workers deserve dignity and respect in their homes. We believe that dignified working conditions benefit both worker and employer. I have been an attendant employer since I was 18 years old, and I currently employ 6 IHSS workers on a regular basis. I have been using in-home support services since I was 18 years old. Having attendants makes it possible for me to live independently in the community and to live my life on a day-to-day basis so I can go to work, live in my own home, and make my own choices about my life and my time. Because of attendant support, I was able to go to college, get a master's degree, and now work full-time as a psychotherapist. IHSS workers provide thousands of people, including seniors and other people with disabilities, with similar kinds of support. It allows them to make their own choices about how they want to live their lives and where they want to live, where they want to live. My work is really important to me and to others, and my attendants make it possible for me to do my work. Thus, it is absolutely critical that the workers who provide me support get the support they need to live their lives and support their families. Dignified working conditions for IHSS workers means dignified support for IHSS employers. At my own job, I get paid sick days, overtime pay, and paid vacation. These are basic rights that all workers should have. IHSS workers deserve them too. Currently, the IHSS system does not provide these basic benefits to their workers, and this needs to change. California was set to implement federal overtime laws for IHSS workers until a court intervened. California has the money. It's not too late to start this year. California can be at the forefront of the nation supporting home care workers. We are aware that there are concerns that higher pay for IHSS workers could mean less hours of support for people with disabilities and seniors. But we know that we don't have to choose between the two. We can and we must support workers and their employers. We can and we must implement overtime for IHSS workers at the same time. Ensure that no single IHSS employer loses even an hour of attendant support. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki and Dr. Boris. Let's give them one more round of applause. That was some great testimony, wasn't it? And I'm sure our jurors have a lot of questions. Yes, we do, Dad. We do? Okay. We will get to your questions soon, but first, we wanted to welcome some very special guests to our tribunal.
Ahora tenemos el gran honor de dar la bienvenida a nuestras hermanas y hermanos de organizaciones para las trabajadoras del hogar de todo el mundo. Están aquí con nosotros nuestras hermanas de Sudáfrica, hermanos y hermanas de Jordania, de Morocco, y de Hong Kong. Ellos también son parte de este movimiento hacia la dignidad del trabajo del hogar. Y ahora están aquí ellos dándonos su espíritu de solidaridad internacional. ¿Estamos listos para recibirlos?
Sisters and brothers, these guests have come from as far away as South Africa, Jordan, and Hong Kong. They are part of an international delegation of domestic workers from the AFL-CIO's Solidarity Center. And we are honored to have them here with us today. Where are our international guests?
¿Dónde están?
Oh, they're back here in the back.
Yes. My mother was a kitchen girl. My father was a garden boy. That's why I'm a unionist. I'm a unionist. I'm a unionist. My mother was a kitchen girl. My father was a garden boy. That's why I'm a unionist. I'm a unionist. I'm a unionist. My mother was a kitchen girl. My father was a garden boy. That's why I'm a unionist. I'm a unionist. I'm a unionist. My mother was a kitchen girl. My father was a garden boy. That's why I'm a unionist. I'm a unionist. My mother was a kitchen girl. That's why I'm a unionist. My mother was a kitchen girl. My father was a garden boy. That's why I'm a unionist. I'm a unionist. I'm a unionist. Thank you.
One more round of applause. Thank you for standing with us today. Thank you for being here today.
Gracias a nuestros invitados tan magníficos. Gracias por estar compartiendo hoy aquí con nosotros.
Okay, now let's get back to this trial. Here we have our next three witnesses. Who is Latanya? Oh, okay. Can you please tell us why you're here today?
I provide care for 2 clients through the IHSS program, and I'm here to share my story.
Thank you. Thank you, Latanya. You can be seated. Next we have Chantel. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Chantel Morris, and I am a home care client, and I'm here to testify before the jurors.
Gracias, Chantal. Raquel, ¿se puede poner de pie y decirnos qué está haciendo hoy aquí?
Buenas tardes a todos. Yo soy Raquel Botello, de Guadalajara, Jalisco, México. De la tierra del mariachi y del tequila. Y soy orgullosamente miembro de la colectiva de mujeres y la coalición.
Good afternoon. My name is Raquel Botello. I'm from Guadalajara, Mexico, land of mariachi and tequila. I'm a proud member of La Colectiva de Mujeres and the California Domestic Worker Coalition.
Raquel es una trabajadora del hogar en San Francisco y ella estará dando su testimonio hoy. Y como ven, vamos a tener la ayuda de la intérprete para ella. Miembros del jurado, ¿están listos para escuchar nuestros testigos? Gracias. Ahora escucharemos sus testimonios.
Jurors, are you ready to hear from our witnesses?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We will now hear their testimony. LaTanya, you're up.
Hello, members of the jury. I have been a home care provider since 2005. Over the years, I've worked for several clients, but my primary client is my husband, who is a Navy veteran. About 3 years ago, he was diagnosed with a fairly severe diabetes, and he started to lose his eyesight. Shortly after that, he fell ill with pneumonia, which triggered a syndrome called Guillain-Barré that impairs his mobility. So I provide round-the-clock care for my husband in our home to make sure he has everything he needs and support him so that he can live with freedom and independence. And home care is so important. Many people, not just my husband, want to be at home. They want to be with their loved ones in their community. And yet, for the life-saving care I provide for my clients, making sure they take the right meds, monitoring their vitals, preparing their meals, taking them to their doctor's appointments, helping them with their daily exercise, I am paid just $9.85 an hour. Caregivers like me all across the state and across this nation save the government billions of dollars a year. And for that, we are rewarded with poverty wages, no paid sick leave, cuts to our clients' hours of care, and my husband, who can no longer read, I do all his reading for him, especially when it comes to important documents from his doctors and the state. And I don't get paid for that. In fact, no IHSS provider does. Across California, IHSS caregivers bargain at the county level, which is why our pay and benefits vary by county. So one of the things we're working towards is state-level collective bargaining, so that all 4,000 of us can fight together for a living wage and work together to protect the home care program. For our clients and loved ones, state-level collective bargaining would mean a chance to fight for a better program for all of us. It's shameful that in 2015, there's a class of workers who are denied basic rights and protections like a minimum wage and overtime pay. But that's reality. Can you even imagine? It's time that the state of California do what's right and support equality and justice for home care workers. Thank you.
How do I follow that? Good afternoon. My name is Chantel Morris, and I am an IHSS client. But I am so much more than that. I'm a mother, a sister, an aunt, and a best friend. And before I got sick, I was a deli clerk, a butcher, and an active union member. 2 unions. My story starts about 20 years ago when I was 8 months pregnant with my daughter, Rochelle. And I suffered a non-traumatic aneurysm, started bleeding out of my brain, had a pounding headache, went blind, and passed out. When I woke up, I couldn't speak right away, and then I learned that I had a genetic condition that weakened the walls of my blood vessels in my brain. I had to have surgery to clip that aneurysm and stop the bleeding. I woke up bald, had to learn how to walk again, but I was okay. But more importantly, my daughter Rochelle was going to be okay. At 9 months, thank you. At 9 months, I gave birth to her. She was happy and healthy. And only the 6th baby in California's history to undergo the traumatic aneurysm brain surgery while I was still pregnant. In 2004, I moved up to beautiful El Dorado County, continued to raise my daughter, work at the deli, remain very active in my youth. So I thought. 4 years ago, I went to the doctor, was diagnosed with gallstones. Pretty routine diagnosis. Painful, but not really scary. Until the doctor came back and told me that I was in stage 4 liver failure, and I had about a year to live. You see, it turns out that I contracted hepatitis C from that very hospital during a blood transfusion when I had my aneurysm. And I had been living with hepatitis C for over 20 years and didn't even know it. And then I was told I only had a year to live. That's when my best friend Mark, who I first met when I moved to El Dorado County, selflessly stepped up, quit all of his side jobs, and offered to be my caregiver. I was shocked, personally. I mean, he gave up everything just to help a friend. I immediately enrolled in IHSS and was granted 182 hours a month. Mark was my rock. He saw me through the deepest, darkest times of my life. And I swear to you, I don't know where I would be without IHSS, Mark, and United Domestic Workers. The story gets a little better. I mean, I was granted that liver transplant 8 months ago. And today, I'm happy to say that I'm negative for hepatitis C. I'm better and stronger than ever. But here's the clincher. There's still so many things that I can't do. Yet Mark still continues to care for me. This program is so important. Homecare keeps me out of the hospital. And when seniors and people with disabilities and illnesses can receive quality care at home, they're happier, they're healthier, and gee, guess what? It saves the state a ton of money. Which is why I'm here today to say this 7% cut to this program just doesn't make any sense. Do I magically need 7% less care every month? No. Just because the state asked me to? With this cut in place, Mark and every other care provider around is faced with that horrible decision to either work for free or deny their client the quality care that they need and so deserve. This is why we need to fight. This is 2015, you guys. This is not how we're supposed to be treating people. We need to respect the value of the home care providers. They are vital to the existence of so many, myself included. And we need to show seniors and people with disabilities that they matter too, and that we really do care if they live or die. The best way that we can do that is to invest in IHSS, give people the quality care they need, and finally, to pay the workers who provide that care a living wage. Right? I think my story is proof positive that this program works. It is so very important. Every single one of you out there today, everybody, jurors included, nobody's exempt. You may fall ill, you may get in a car accident, You might need home care too. We need to invest in this program so it's available when we need it. And we need to invest in our workers so that they are there to do the job when we need it most. Thank you.
Hola otra vez. Del 99. Llegué aquí como muchos de nosotros, con la ilusión de trabajar fuerte para tener una vida mejor, para pagar la renta, la comida, el vestido y mandar algo de dinero para los hijos. Aquí yo no tengo familia. Mi trabajo lo hago con amor y con gusto todos los días. Me levanto a las 4:30 para poder bañarme, arreglarme e irme a trabajar porque entro a las 8 de la mañana. Tengo que tomar el bus a las 6 porque me gusta ser puntual. Llego con la señora que tengo el gusto de cuidar, le cambio el pañal, la despierto primero, le cambio el pañal, la meto a bañar, con muchos trabajos porque ella ya está grande. No le gusta bañarse porque hace mucho frío, y pues tengo que batallar con ella un poco hasta que la animo para que se bañe. La visto, la peino, le pongo sus cremas, después le hago el desayuno. También a veces no quiere comer, entonces tengo que estarla distrayendo como a un niño para darle de comer en la boca.
Hi again. I've been here since about 1999. I came, like many of us, with the hope of working hard for a better life, to be able to house, feed, and clothe myself, and to send money back home to my kids. I have no family here. Every day I do my work with joy and love. I wake up at 4:30 in the morning to shower and get ready, to take the bus at 6, to make sure to be at work at 8. I like to be on time. She's cranky. When I finally convince her to take a bath, I'm able to dress her, comb her hair, and apply the creams that she needs. I prepare her breakfast, but oftentimes she doesn't want to eat. I have to distract her like a child to be able to feed her.
Después hacemos alguna actividad y luego le preparo su comida. Con la comida tenemos el mismo problema. Después hacemos actividades como jugar, rezar, dibujar, etcétera, etcétera. También hay que tener mucha paciencia porque a ellos ya se les olvidan muchas cosas, donde dejan sus cosas y pues ellos se desesperan, ¿verdad? Yo hace como 4 años me lastimé la cadera. Esos daños son irreversibles. También vivir con la tensión de estarla cuidando, que no se caigan, que no se vayan a golpear, etcétera, etcétera. Luego, un día me dice que necesito quedarme en la noche a cuidarla, que me van a dar solamente $80, que al fin que no voy a hacer nada, que solamente la voy a estar viendo. Y para esto ya son casi 24 horas de estar trabajando.
After breakfast, we do activities, and I begin to prepare her lunch, which sometimes we have the same problem at lunch where she doesn't want to eat. We do more activities, games, reading, drawing, prayers, and so on. And I have to be very patient with her because she often forgets things, where she leaves things, and she herself loses her patience. About 4 years ago, I irreversibly injured my hip. This causes a lot of tension and stress for me because I have to be careful that my client doesn't fall and injure herself. I have to look out for her. Sometimes she tells me, one day she told me, I need you to stay the night with me. I'll give you an extra $80. Since you won't have to do anything, just make sure she's okay. This was after 24 hours of work.
Y pues claro que no nomás la vamos a estar viendo. Hay que cuidarla, hay que cambiarle el pañal si se ensucia, hay que estarla viendo que no se levante, y si se levanta, a veces ya no se quiere volver a dormir. La señora, si tiene frío, agarra su ropa, su bolsa, que tiene sus tarjetas, su ID, todas las cosas, las agarra y como están frías, va y las mete al microondas y le prende para que se calienten. Y pues hay que estar diario cuidando, desconectar el microondas, quitar los botones de la estufa, porque si no le funciona el microondas, va y prende la estufa.
But of course, it's not just watching her. I don't get to sleep. I miss my bed and my pillow. I need to get up throughout the night to change her diaper. If she wakes up, she probably won't go back to sleep. And if she gets cold, which she usually does, she will grab her clothing and her purse with her wallet, her ID, and her documents in it, and she'll try to warm them up by putting them in the microwave. I have to be vigilant. I have to unplug the microwave and take the buttons off the stove, which she will use if the microwave is unplugged.
Primero me dijeron, te voy a dar más horas, pero te voy a rebajar el pago. Después me quitaron las horas, pero ya no me aumentaron el pago. Después, hasta que me dijo, un día para otro, ya no vengas. Entonces, pues, yo me quedé en shock. ¿Qué voy a hacer para pagar mi renta? ¿Qué voy a hacer para comer? Entonces, y aparte todavía me queda la preocupación, ¿quién va a cuidar a la señora? ¿Cómo la irán a cuidar? ¿Irá a estar bien? Pero bueno, ojalá que no la hagan sufrir.
One day my employer told me, I'm going to increase your hours, but I have to decrease your pay. Then he took away the extra hours he had given me, and finally he said, from one day to the next, I don't need you anymore. I was in shock. What was I going to do? How was I going to eat and pay for rent? And who was going to care for my client? Who was going to make sure she didn't suffer? Would she be okay?
Por eso y por mucho más, pido que la Carta de Derechos AB 241 no se cancele, que permanezca y que se paguen los días de enfermedad para nosotras poder pagar al doctor y las medicinas, ya que no tenemos nada que nos proteja. Por favor, abran su corazón, su sentir, escuchen nuestras voces. Ustedes tienen el poder de mejorar nuestras vidas con la AB 241. Okay, I'm trying. Look into your heart and your feeling. Hear our voices. You have the power to make our life better with AB 241. We are tireless, fighters, and will continue this struggle. Thank you. ¡Sí se puede! Ay.
For this reason and many more, I ask that AB 241, the Domestic Worker Bill of Rights, remains and does not sunset, that we be paid sick time so we can see our doctors and buy the medicine that we need. We really don't have anything else to protect us.
Thank you to the witnesses. Before we move on with the program, you see we already have 6 jurors up there. We want to make it right. We want to add a 7th, just in case there's a tie. So, sisters and brothers, I'd like to welcome our special juror, Ai-Jen Poo, who just made it in. Ai-Jen is the director of the National Domestic Workers Alliance. Ai-Jen is the director of the National Domestic Workers Alliance, co-director of the Caring Across Generations, and the author of the book of The Age of Dignity, which is this book right here. Ai-Jen has been organizing immigrant women workers since 1996 and spearheaded the successful passage of the historic Domestic Workers Bill of Rights. She is the 2014 MacArthur Genius Fellow and was named one of Time's 100 most influential people in the world. Welcome, Ai-Jen.
So first, on behalf of the jury, we want to thank all of our witnesses for sharing their powerful stories today. Can we give them one more round of applause? That's right. Because we know that these stories are just a few drops in a powerful ocean that, is the movement for dignity in the home that, if you look around the room, that we know is powerful, is vibrant, is dynamic, and like the ocean, anything in the path of that ocean, anyone who, like LaTanya was saying, seeks to make a lot of profit off the back of the hard labor of all the workers, or seeks to divide this powerful movement for dignity in the home, that just doesn't stand a chance, right? Right. And we want to take a moment just to hear from my colleagues that are here on the panel. And so, can we start with Evan? Evan, do you have any questions for our witnesses?
I do. Hey, can everyone hear me? Well, first I want to say it's such an honor to be here, and it's so inspiring to feel your energy, and I'm so proud of the work that you've done. I'm proud to be a part of this big coalition. I want to thank you guys. Amazing testimony, really fantastic. As I'm listening to you, it occurs to me that human beings from time to time get sick, right? And so most workers that I know of, you wake up in the morning, you've got a fever, you've got chills, you've got a sore throat, you've got a flu, let's say. And what you do is you call in your place of work and say, I can't come in because I'm sick. Number one, because you can't work and you shouldn't be working. And also for the second reason is for the courtesy and health of your coworkers. So in IHSS, what happens to you when you wake up in the morning and you have a sore throat and fever and chills?
We go to work. We won't get paid if we don't work.
You just go to work?
Yes. We don't have sick time.
There is no substitute person you can call in.
So you're sick, you're coughing, wheezing, sweating, and you're going to go and provide intimate personal care for someone, and so then they get sick. Well, does that make sense?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Evan. Can we go to Sandra?
I also want to thank our witnesses for providing such compelling testimony today. Thank you. But you know, I've spent some time inside the Capitol talking to legislators about these issues, and they always ask about one thing: the money. So I want to talk about the financial case for why these could be positive policies for California. So there's a couple of things that I believe that I understand. I just want to make sure that I'm correct on these. The overtime that we talked about being taken away from domestic workers, that there was legislation and the court has held this up, this overtime. Isn't that already in the governor's budget? Yes! So all that is necessary is for that money to now be spent. It's already ready, it's waiting. And the 7% cuts to this program that we've seen over the last few years. This was at the beginning of the recession, and California has come such a long way since then, economically. Aren't we, in fact, at this point, operating on a multi-year surplus? Yes. So couldn't that surplus be used to restore funding to these workers and vulnerable patients in need of care? Yes. 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 And wouldn't doing both of those things put money in the pockets of workers who would immediately spend it in our economy, fueling California's economy even further? Yes. And don't these programs save California money in the long run because it means that individuals who need care are not institutionalized? Yes. And wouldn't raising wages mean that fewer workers need to rely upon public assistance? Yes! Well, I appreciate all of you clarifying that I had my facts straight. Given those facts, I see no reason why California has an economic case for not taking these moves now.
Thank you for those insightful questions, Sandra, and answers, everybody. And so, how about Dr. Song? Do you have any questions?
So first of all, I just want to say what an honor it is to be here. I've always thought that we as a society are defined by how we take care of the least and most vulnerable among us. And clearly, this group of people does that on a day-to-day basis, and thank you for doing that. So when I'm not running the Courage campaign, I'm actually a physician that takes care of cancer patients. And I see firsthand the benefits of what you all do because you keep patients out of the hospital, and that ultimately saves our state money, as been pointed out. But one thing I want to point out is we keep talking about where the money is, as Sandra mentioned, it's allocated, but I have another idea. And this week, you heard that Blue Shield lost its tax-exempt status because it was not providing any community benefit. And it's really at the savings of billions of dollars that they're sitting in reserves. We also see hospitals like the one that I work at that has a not-for-profit status and yet fills its hallways with expensive art, pays its CEOs exorbitant salaries. And here we're debating whether or not we should bump up you guys the minimum wage for some of the workers that you guys are doing incredible work. So the question I have is, wouldn't it be nice now that Blue Shield has lost its tax-exempt status and the state is going to recover tens of millions of dollars to put that back into something that saves our state money, you all, in the healthcare system? And why do we just stop with Blue Shield? Why don't we go after all the other, quote, healthcare providers that are living high off our state, not paying taxes, and stop balancing it on the backs of you all?
Thank you, Dr. Song. Thanks, Dr. Song. Lillian Galedo, it's your turn. Do you have any questions or statements?
I also want to thank the speakers and the jurors for your comments, and all of you who are on the front lines of the struggle for better conditions and wages for caregivers. I wanted to acknowledge that that I'm sure everybody here understands the crisis that we have in terms of the number of people who need caregiving, and that this shouldn't fall on the backs of the caregivers, that the government bears some responsibility, that we as a society bear some responsibility for providing quality care for the people who need it, but also quality wages and conditions for those people who provide the care. And I appreciate the fact that in the room there are people who are IHSS workers, and there are caregivers here who are not IHSS workers. And as we lift the boat for IHSS workers, we continue to lift the boat in terms of better wages and conditions and labor protections for all those who are not IHSS workers. And we resist the temptation to pit public caregivers against private caregivers. That this is one movement for the benefit of all caregivers, which was the premise for the Domestic Worker Bill of Rights. And we appreciated the support that we got from labor. I wanted to ask Eileen in particular whether there are lessons from the struggle to organize IHSS workers. I remember that. It took many years to figure out who the employer of record would be, whether there were any lessons from that history that would help us in organizing those of us who are not IHSS caregivers.
The most important lesson is that you need strong worker, consumer organizations to keep the pressure on the state.
Thank you, Dr. Boris and Lillian. And so we want to check in now with Tafari. Do you have any thoughts or questions for the witnesses?
If there's any left. First, I just want to say how impressive you were from your testimonies. And we need people like you to advocate for all workers. Not just only domestic workers, but for all workers. So I think you agree with me. Our agenda is raising wages. I see people with signs that say raise wages. And Now, when we say raise wages, we have to make sure that includes everybody, including people who work at home and domestic workers and those who care for our veterans at home after they went and fought for us, right? So what I heard from the testimony, to me, it's clear. I hope you agree with me. We are saying anybody who gets up in the morning and goes to work deserves the dignity of work. And the respect that comes with it. So they are trying to divide us by saying you're a bus driver, you're a domestic worker, you're a doctor, you're a nurse. But we fall for it only when we fall for it. We are workers and we stand together, right? And any politician who says you're not, what you do is not work, I suggest this. They should do for a week what you do. Before they vote to cut your budget, they should get up at 4:30 in the morning, like you said. They should go take the bus at 6 o'clock in the morning and go clean someone, take care of them, tuck them back in bed. Then they should come back and tell us if we need a raise or a cut. I am proud to be with you. I am proud to be here with you. I'm always energized to be among us with you. Fight on. Thank you.
Thank you, Tafari. And last but certainly not least, we want to hear from Ai-jen Poo.
I want to thank the expert witnesses for your powerful testimony. And I want to thank all of you in this room who work day in and day out, caring for the most precious people and elements of our lives. I want to thank every single one of you in this tent today that works as a home care worker or a caregiver or a domestic worker. Thank you for what you do for our families and our communities and our economy. And I have a special personal note of thanks because my grandmother, who turns 89 tomorrow, her birthday is tomorrow, she raised me. She potty trained me. She took care of me when I was a baby, all through my childhood. She taught me my values. She taught me what it means to treat people with dignity and respect. And she's turning 89, and she lives in this great state of California, in Alhambra, Southern California, and she's able to live life on her terms with dignity because she's supported by a home care worker named Mrs. Sun. So I want to thank you on behalf of my grandmother and my whole family for everything you do. And I have two observations. One is that it seems to me like anyone who cares about women's equality in this state should care about home care workers' dignity. It is no accident that all of our expert witnesses are women. Women have an average life expectancy that's longer than men. So oftentimes when we're talking about the consumers who will need care and support and services, it is women. It is our grandmothers and our mothers, the women in our lives. Women are still doing more than 70% of the family caregiving responsibilities. So for those of us who are managing family care, it is women. And we have no support to do that. And more than 90% of the professional home care and caregiving workforce is women. And we have no support in that work. We still have to be here gathered in a tent in 2015 demanding basic rights and dignity. So this is absolutely fundamental to women's equality. And when we talk about these cuts and this overtime pay that is already in the budget but will not be released, 7% cuts to IHHS. My other observation is this. When I think about the fact that in this country, more than 10,000 people turn 65 every single day. 4 million people this year will turn 65. And because of advances in healthcare and medicine, people are living longer than ever before, so that my grandmother's age demographic is the fastest growing demographic in this country. And so by the year 2050, 27 million people in this country will need some form of care or assistance just to meet our basic daily needs. It seems clear that we should not be talking about restoring cuts. We should not be talking about basic rights or overtime. We should be talking about a revolution in caregiving in this country, expanding these programs, growing these programs, investing in these programs, so that this is the core of our economy that's recognized as what it is. The work that makes all other work possible. Those are my two observations, and my question for the panel is, where do we go from here? You're doing such amazing work, raising awareness, organizing, building power. What can we all be doing together next to take this fight to where it needs to go, so that we can really have this program and this profession be recognized for the true value of its worth in our economy and in society?
This one works.
Oh, okay.
I think we have to keep fighting. We have to stick together. We have to make sure we keep our unions. We have to be the ones. Are you all on board? Let's keep fighting. Let's keep our unions. Let's stay together. Let's fight.
Thank you.
Quiero decir que la unión hace la fuerza.
I want to say that our strength is in our unity.
Let's band together and show our workers some respect.
We fight together, we fight hard, and we fight strong.
And we need to come together on a common agenda. The equivalent to the GI Bill of Rights, we need a Caregivers Bill of Rights that funds that caregivers revolution. But this is war. Peaceful war.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And so this concludes the questions from the jury, and we will now hear your closing arguments.
This morning, saw a world full of trouble now. I thought, how do we ever get so far down? And how's it ever gonna turn around? So I turned my eyes to heaven.
Now can you hear me? There we go. Hola. Hi, everybody. I'm Gary Passmore with the Congress of California Seniors. I'm not a lawyer, but I know how to give a closing argument because I'm an advocate. And I am an advocate for home care. And I'm a proud advocate. Now, I want all you folks who are standing back to come forward because you need to hear what it is I'm summarizing what you've heard today. We've had really an awesome panel of witnesses telling the stories of caregivers and clients. We've had some great questions, and now we're going to find out what this jury's made of. We've heard today about injustice. We've heard about injustice that is experienced every day by home care workers like you and by clients who need home care like you. In too many places in this state, the wages are so low that people can't live on the wages, and that's wrong. Do you agree? That's just plain wrong. People can't live if they don't have just basic benefits like sick leave, like you heard. When workers get sick, they deserve to be taken care of and not have to show up and make the person they take care of get sick. That isn't right. That's wrong. And we need to change it. We need family leave. We need disability pay. We need overtime. Amen. I've been in this building and I've got one message for them. It's overtime for overtime. It's way past time for overtime. And with all of the problems that you and the clients that you take care of face, you folks do a remarkable job. I represent seniors. I represent old people. And let me tell you something. There may be 10,000 people a day in the United States getting old, and 1 in every 10 of them lives in California. We have 1,000 people turning 65 in this country every day. And let me tell you a couple of other facts so that you can take them back or take them into this building. Do you know that 8% of the people in this state, and they're probably the very people that you take care of every day, those people consume 75% of all the health care spending in America. 3 out of every $4 of the trillion that we spend is for people that you know and work with every day. And I believe you need good training paid for by the state so that you can help lower those costs and provide better care. That's just one of the things that we need to do. Home care is devalued. We act like it doesn't matter in the big scheme of the state of California. In addition to doing some things well and some things not so well, they make official projections, and I want to share 2 numbers with you guys. These come from the Department of Finance, operated by the state, and the director, I've seen him walk by 3 times now. I think he's keeping an eye on you out of the corner of his eye, and I hope he goes in here and gets a little nervous and calls some of his staff together. We will very soon, in just a little more than 10 years in California, we'll have a home care program, IHSS, that will have 750,000 people in it. The elderly population of this state isn't just doubling, it's more than doubling. And California is getting old faster than almost any other state in the country. A lot of us don't know that, but it's true. And we're going to need caregivers to take care of 750,000 low-income Californians. That means, just using today's numbers, we're going to need 625,000 IHSS workers. I bet Doug didn't even know that. Today we have 460,000. We're all going to probably be alive to see it. It isn't that far off. We're going to need 625,000 caregivers. How the hell are we going to attract caregivers that make minimum wage or worse, don't have any benefits, don't get overtime, and people don't care? You got it. Yell like hell. We've been through a decade where there was a high rate of unemployment because the economy collapsed. But let me tell you, with the aging of California, there aren't going to be as many workers to go around. Lots of workers are going to retire, and we're going to have a worker shortage. And if the folks in this building don't wake up and discover, in order to provide the care that you provide, you need to make more money, or you're going to go someplace else. You need to have benefits like all other workers. And you need overtime. 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 You guys must know me, because we need equal rights for home care workers. As I said, we need to make sure we're giving sick leave. We need to fund overtime. We need to fund all the benefits that other workers in California expect as their right. Home care, and pretend people can take care of themselves, and use that as a floor for the program that we're going to need in another 10 or 15 years. We've got to use that as step one, and it's a big stair that we've got to go to make this program be what we're going to need. We need to make sheriff cost requirements more fair so that people can afford to stay at home and get their IHSS rather than be so poor they end up in a nursing home. That's right. We need to extend and expand the Domestic Workers' Bill of Rights. We need to work toward a real living wage and fair working conditions and benefits for people that take care of the frailest, most vulnerable people in our state. You know, California is a great place. Most of us live here because we like it here. But we have a shameful legacy. We have a legacy of discrimination and inequality toward the very people who assist our most vulnerable and frail citizens. And we've got to be honest enough to confront it as a state. We need to look ourselves in the mirror and say we've got to change things. So I want to ask you to do one thing for me. Amen. Let me tell you, we're here because we need the legislature to take some actions this year. But we also need Governor Jerry Brown to take an action he could do before he goes home today. California has the oldest governor in the history of our state. No governor has ever been as old and sat in the governor's office since California was formed. We've got the oldest governor in America. No other governor is as old as Jerry Brown. So I want you to yell loud enough for him to hear it on the other side of the building. Because if you don't yell, he's not going to hear it. And here's what I want you to yell. Jerry Brown, act your age. Act your age. Jerry Brown, act your age. Act your age. Act your age. Act your age. Jerry Brown, act your age. Thank you. Now, I've got one more thing I want to say. We've got a jury here. They look pretty fair. I can't tell. But I want you to make sure to thank this jury if they find in favor of treating home care workers fairly, giving you the money you deserve, the benefits you deserve, and the hours your clients need. So let's see if the jury's got it in them to do the right thing. Thanks very, very much.
On behalf of the panel of jurors, thank you to Gary, thank you to all of the witnesses and to everyone here for giving us a lot to consider. We're going to take just a couple minutes to deliberate amongst ourselves, and then we'll return to you with our judgment. Thank you.
If you
Everything to know about me is written on this page. The number you can reach me, my social and my age. Yes, I served in the Army. It's where I learned to shoot. 18 months in the desert, pouring sand out of my boots. No, I've never been convicted.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience. So the panel of jurors has reached our judgment.
Could everyone please stand as I read our judgment in this case? Whereas home care workers in California provide essential services that protect the independence, dignity, and well-being of seniors and persons with disabilities, and whereas home care workers fall into many categories, for example, paid and unpaid family caregivers, personal care attendants employed through publicly funded programs, home care aides employed by private agencies, or attendants serving private pay clients. And whereas home care workers across the state have joined together to demand increased dignity and respect and equal rights under the law, and whereas consideration given to home care workers under federal and state laws has historically reflected stereotypical assumptions about the nature of such work, specifically that employment within a household was not real, productive work, and that women did not work to support their families. And whereas the majority of home care workers are women, low income, and of diverse ethnic and racial backgrounds, and whereas the average wage rate for workers providing services through California's in-home supportive services program is $10 per hour with no paid time off or retirement benefit. And whereas in 2014, workers providing services through IHSS were specifically excluded from legislation granting paid sick leave to nearly every worker in the state. And whereas a recent federal court ruling has denied home care workers across the nation from being eligible for minimum wage and overtime protections under the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act. And whereas IHSS workers who are the parent or spouse of the consumer for whom they provide care do not qualify for Federal Insurance Contributions Act deductions due to exceptions in the Federal Internal Revenue Code, and as a result are not eligible to receive Social Security or Medicare benefits upon their retirement. And whereas exclusion from these basic labor protections has contributed to the poverty, financial hardship, reliance on public benefits, and the disempowerment of home care workers. And whereas since 2009, the IHSS program has once again been the target of massive budget cuts, enduring repeated legislative attempts to reduce clients' access to services and workers' hourly wages. And whereas IHSS currently suffer an ongoing 7% across the board cut to services and hours, and whereas low wage and meager benefits drive many workers out of these important jobs at a time when the need for home care workers in California is expected to dramatically increase as a result of the aging of the baby boomer generation. And whereas improving the wages and benefits of home care workers has been shown to improve the economic well-being of workers and their families, substantially reduce industry turnover, and improve access to reliable and quality services. And whereas the current IHSS collective bargaining environment in California has not adequately elevated industry wages and benefits, with workers being denied pay increases for many years. Whereas IHSS is the nation's largest publicly funded non-medical program designed to ensure that seniors and people with disabilities are able to live independently in their own homes. And whereas IHSS is the foundation of California's efforts to comply with the 1999 U.S. Supreme Court Olmstead decision, which requires public agencies to provide services in an integrated setting. And whereas IHSS saves California and the federal government billions of dollars by preventing unnecessary hospitalization and institutionalization, therefore, be it resolved that home care workers and clients in California have faced numerous violations of their rights, including the right to equal treatment under the law, the right to needed in-home supports and services, the right to Social Security, the right to favorable working conditions, the right to paid time off, the right to retire with dignity, the right to a living wage with benefits, the right to workman's compensation, the right to freedom from injury and violence on the job, and the right to privacy, their own bed and lockers for their belongings. Be it further resolved that both the state and federal government should take immediate steps to extend basic labor protections to all home care workers, and be it further resolved that both state and federal governments should increase funding for long-term supports and services like IHSS, which allow individuals to remain safe and independent in their homes and communities. And be it further resolved that California should restore the ongoing 7% cut to service hours for IHSS clients. And be it further resolved that the California Domestic Worker Bill of Rights, currently set to sunset in 2016, be made permanent and expanded beyond overtime pay to include labor rights equal to those of other workers. Be it further resolved that California pass legislation to transition collective bargaining in IHSS from the county to the state level to allow workers a better chance to secure a living wage and benefits. And be it further resolved that California should move forward with implementing overtime pay and other labor protections for IHSS workers without, hear me now, without compromising or reducing any hours of support for IHSS consumers. We urge the state to ensure that in circumstances in which relatives provide IHSS support to 2 or more family members, in which a person receives a waiver personal care services in addition to IHSS, these consumers continue to get all the services they need from their home care worker of choice. And be it finally resolved, on behalf of the Justice for Home Care Tribunal members seated behind me, that achieving equal treatment under state and federal labor laws would be an essential step toward valuing the work of home care workers, as well as a rejection of antiquated and long discredited stereotypes about domestic work. Thank you very much, and congratulations.
All right. would like to thank our jurors, our witnesses, performers, and you for being here today. This has been a tremendous event, hasn't it? All right.
Gracias por estar aquí. Como hemos visto, es un evento muy grandioso, con mucho poder, y eso es porque todos estamos juntos aquí.
We are going to present the resolution to lawmakers, and let's send one last message before we leave here today. How many of you are fired up and ready to keep fighting for home care?
Nuestra presencia y nuestras resoluciones hoy son un paso a la ganancia de la dignidad en el hogar. ¿Se puede, compañeros?
Se puede.
¿Se puede?
Sí, se puede.
¿Se puede?
Sí, se puede. Okay. Okay, one last chant. I want everybody to repeat after me. Say, I believe. I believe that. I believe that we will win. 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 Okay, I want to thank you, but please join me in welcoming our final performer, Guillermina Castellanos.
Vamos a cantar una canción porque estamos unidos. La coalición es como los rayos del sol que ilumina y transforma el corazón. Trabajando todos juntos y lo vamos a lograr. La justicia y la victoria no nos pueden ya quitar. Con uniones vamos todos, vámonos a organizar. Todos. Yes we can, domestic worker, sí se ve. Yes we can, domestic worker, sí se ve. Siempre con uniones, vamos, de la mano siempre juntos ya estamos. Transformando, organizando, si lo vamos a lograr. Por justicia y las mujeres, si lo vamos a lograr. Vamos todos con uniones, vámonos a organizar. ¡Yeah, bravo! Thank you, mi bebé. Muchas gracias. Hasta pronto, porque esto no es lo último. Continuamos trabajando, luchando para lograr cambios y llevar a cabo todas las resoluciones que hablamos aquí con toda esta gente maravillosa. No nos vamos a despedir porque nos vamos a volver a ver. Muchas gracias. Buenas tardes. ¡Sí se puede! ¡Sí se puede! ¡Sí se puede! ¡Sí se puede!
¡Sí se puede! ¡Sí se puede! ¡Sí se puede! ¡Sí se puede!
¡Gracias! ¡Hasta la victoria! ¡Siempre!